Bring this down to my size. Well, welcome. It's great to see so many attending this evening. I really didn't think there'd be this many people here, and I'm just flabbergasted. Thanks to all the veterans. Thank you for your service. All the families and friends of the veterans. Thank you for your support. A special thank you to the organizers and volunteers and all in attendance that made this event the welcome home we never had. I'm Stephen Robert Bauer. I served in the 26th Marine Regiment from December 1967 to August 1970. These boots here carried me through 2 tours of duty in Vietnam. So if they look like they've been to hell and back, they have. Never could figure out why I hung on to them, but now I know why. At my 10-year high school class reunion, I think it was about 1977, a classmate came up to me and told me, I heard you were killed in Vietnam. I said, no, I'm still around. I'm still walking around. I didn't get killed. I didn't get even hurt. I didn't get hurt in any way over there, except for maybe a few scratches from non-fighter. So about 20 years after that, I was looking on the internet and looking at the names on the wall of people from Minnesota. Well, lo and behold, here's Stephen Robert Bauer. And if he's on panel 33W, line 091. Same middle name, same church, same branch of service. He was from North St. Paul. Wish I could have met him. Anyway, that's how that rumor got spread around. So I was lucky. Always very lucky. And if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time over there, you don't come back. In December of '68, after my first tour, I was coming home. And getting home was always on my mind. I had extended for another tour, and I was coming home for a 30-day leave. You could go any place in the free world. They give you 30 days free leave if you volunteered for another tour. Well, I came home. There really wasn't any other place I think somebody wanted to go. As we left Vietnam, we stopped at Okinawa, and then we were there for about a day or so, and then took off from Okinawa. And the ride got really rough towards the end of the runway. Well, the captain came over after we had taken off and said we'd have blown tires. I don't know if he got blown tires or tire or how many, but the takeoff had gotten rough until we got into the air. So we settled in for our 11-hour flight to San Francisco. It was a party atmosphere. You have a plane load full of Marines coming home. The pillow fights, stewardesses joining in. As we approached the San Francisco airport, stewardesses came through and told us to remove any sharp objects out of our pockets, position ourselves for crash landing. I looked out the window, saw the runway lined with ambulances, fire trucks, whatnot. I thought, oh boy, make it back to Vietnam, die on the runway. Well, the whole trip I hadn't thought about that blown tire. And I think the stewardesses knew that we'd be required to follow emergency precautions and procedures during that 11 hours in the air. As we touched down, the engines reversed immediately. We were at a complete stop. It seemed like we stopped from here to the grandstand. I'm sure it was farther than that. But if we stopped in a hurry, we all disembarked from the airplane right on the runway, and everything was fine. Some years later, Hollywood produced a lot of movies about the Vietnam War. I didn't find many of them to be very realistic. So, Vietnam vets didn't really talk about their experiences in Vietnam much. And one of the movies I was watching in the 70s, I walked out of because there was so much vulgar language. I just thought, I didn't like the way they were depicting this. Can't remember what movie that was. So anyway, after about 30 years, I returned home from the service. Our family was watching a movie, and Forrest Gump. So my kids were getting older. I think my youngest son was about 16. Well, it became apparent that night that I hadn't talked about Vietnam. I said to my wife that the jungle portrayal in Forrest Gump really looked like the landscape in Vietnam, more so than any other movies I'd seen. My son says, "Well, like you'd know." He didn't know. So it was a whole different lifetime, one that I obviously had not shared. Going back, this isn't quite in complete chronological order. I started my service in the Marine Corps in 1966. Out of boot camp, I went to radio telegraph school. I was sent to Camp Lejeune. While at Camp Lejeune, I got involved in some rifle competition, intramural competition. I outshot everyone in that intramural competition, Camp Lejeune, and I won the Grand Aggregate Trophy. And the rifle and pistol team was hot to get me on their team, because wherever they went to shoot in a match, they needed a novice shooter, a new shooter. They took me to Cherry Point. We placed there and got trophies there, and they were just as happy as a lark. And then they were going to get me on the rifle and pistol team. Well, before they did that, within about 2 weeks, or seemed like about 2 weeks, I don't remember exactly the timeline, but I had orders for Vietnam. I had told them, I've got orders for Vietnam. Well, we're going to see if we can get you out of that. We want you on the team. About a week later, they come back and said, no, can't get you out of that. So off I went for training to go to Vietnam. But before I left, I went and talked to my company commander, and I said, can you give me a recommendation? Because I'd like to do something else other than what I had training for as radio telegraph operator. And he said, you write that recommendation, I'll sign it. So I wrote the recommendation that it be considered for sniper school or be considered to be put on the Marine Corps rifle and pistol team when I returned. So I took that with me. On the way to Vietnam, they took me off the plane at Okinawa and said, you're going to be stationed here, 26th Marine Rear. Really? I had no idea. So I was there for a couple months, and everybody that was stationed there was trying to get off the island. All the Marines were seeing other Marines come and go from Vietnam. We felt like we weren't doing our part. Well, people would put in requests to go, but to be turned down. Well, I put in a request and sent my recommendation along with it and was accepted. Well, that didn't make anybody else happy. They were all a little mad at me. But off to Vietnam I went, flew into Phu Bai, and a few weeks later, got into Phu Bai, and right away we were in a tropical storm. And about a week later, I was on my way down to a northern part of Da Nang for a sniper school. When I first reported there, they had a gunnery sergeant that was in charge of the sniper school. It was a short course. And he says, what are you doing here? Because I had glasses. He didn't think that anyone should be allowed in sniper training that wore glasses. Well, it was too late because I was already there. But at the end of the training, we all got to shoot 5 rounds at a moving target at 1,000 meters. Well, I was the only one to hit the moving target 4 out of 5 shots. I think the next one closest to me hit it twice. Then I asked him, I said, what do you think of glasses now? No, he never answered me. Well, anyway, some people think that snipers are somebody that went out in the boondocks and sat in a tree. Well, I was never in a tree. I never seen a sniper in a tree. We kind of got attached to companies within our battalion, and at different times we'd be at different companies, and you always have 2 of you, and we just go wherever they went. We carried a Remington Model 700 308 with a Redfield 3-9 variable scope and a 45. Well, after everyone else in the in the group was carrying automatic rifles, M16s, and it was really thick out there. I never felt very comfortable carrying a single shot, bolt action rifle in this jungle. And you couldn't lay down any firepower. You didn't want to shoot unless you could really had something to shoot at. You couldn't just hose down an area. And so I didn't feel like we were being utilized right. And then other times, depending where you were, sometimes we had a Starlight scope mounted on an M16. Well, those scopes are about that big around and about that long, and they weigh about 20 pounds. And usually we didn't carry those out in the jungle, but if we were stationed someplace on a hill, we'd have that. Letters from home were the means of communication for servicemen in Vietnam. You know, there was no internet, there was no cell phones or email or FaceTime. If you were lucky, you'd get to place a call on through the Mars station, and they'd put the call through to California, from California to your home. But every time you said something, you'd have to say over, and so would the person on the other, the party you're talking to, your parents or girlfriend or your wives or whoever you had. So that wasn't very handy. It's always a treat to hear about somebody or find somebody that you knew, from home. At one point, I found out that our neighbor was stationed in Da Nang in the Air Force. So I wrote back to my folks. I said, "Can you send me his address?" So I got that, and then I walked several miles to find him, and found this Air Force base here he's stationed. Of course, they took my rifle away. They wouldn't let me take it on the base. I thought, wow, what's going on here? I got on there, and I finally found this little hoochie stand, and I walked in there, and there was a refrigerator. And I thought, what's going on here? They had electricity. They had all kinds of things we didn't have. Anyway, that's how I found Robbie LeCan. Yeah, some of you might be related or know Robbie LeCan. It was just a treat to see him. Another time, went to the USO building. I think I was on my way to go on R&R or something like that. And I went to sign the log, the visitor's book. The name before me was Steve Shabby. He's right here. So, found you. It's like a little reunion. Yeah, a little reunion we had. That was great. Okay, well, when I first got sent out into the jungles with the patrol or with the company, I didn't know much. You're kind of green. And we'd get these long rations. It's kind of like dehydrated food. You added water to it, and they had chicken and rice. They had chili con carne, spaghetti and meatballs. You just add water and rehydrate it, you could eat it. Hardly ever got to eat it hot. You just add water to it and eat it cold. Every packet came with coffee, with sugar and cream, or it'd come with hot chocolate. Well, none of that stuff is good cold. So someone told me, well, you save all those packets. I said, well, why? He said, well, when you get enough, and we got some place where you can heat some water up, you mix it all together. We call it Pamoko. I thought, great. It was the best tasting stuff. You wouldn't think you could ever enjoy such a mixture, a concoction, but it tasted great. It was hot. You could actually have time to enjoy a hot drink. Mix all that chocolate, creamers, sugar, coffee together, and it was all instant. And then someone showed me that you can take a piece of plastic explosive, C4, and break off a little piece, about as big as the end of your finger, your last knuckle. And you put a match on that, and it burns like a blowtorch. You put that under your canteen, and you'd have hot water by the time that thing burned out. It burns very hot. Being new, you're a little leery. Well, this is an explosive, what are you doing? Kind of scared me, but I got used to it. I think you have to have a blasting cap to set it off. Because I always carried about a pound of that in my backpack, and I was always worried I'd get shot through the backpack and get blown up. I was assured that it takes a blasting cap to make it explode. Okay, somebody called me, Greg Paquette called me, asked me if I'd read this little poem just before I left home to come down here tonight. And I hope I haven't gone over my time. I'm okay? All right. It goes like this. There is a place in country where I do not want to go. A place that holds a sadness that I already know. I know exactly where it is. I know when it took form. I know it tells the story of the children in the storm. I'm told that I belong there and that welcome I would be, for someday I must face them if I want to be set free. I know that they are waiting to tell me it's all right, that I shouldn't let their falling still haunt me in the night. I don't want to take that journey, but that is not my say. You have to walk the road ahead and take it day by day. But still I fear that coming dawn, for too much I will recall. How can I ever face them, all those names upon the wall? The quiet found at battle's end, a silence we still hear, just another rite of passage in the land of sudden fear. Signed by Delta Blue. Anyway, I'm sure there's a lot of veterans up there that could be up here speaking. I'm no hero, but I walked amongst